Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be tackling something I think we can all relate to,
Yeah.
making sure learning sticks and that our projects don't totally go off the rails.
Oh, yeah.
Our guide for today is this really insightful LinkedIn article called 3 Loops for Leading Learners.
Okay.
It's written by leadership consultant Bryan Setser.
Oh, cool.
He calls himself a wayfinder,
I like that.
which I think is a really cool way to describe what he does.
Yeah. Yes.
Helping people navigate the messy world of work.
Yeah. And he does that by using these real world scenarios to kind of illustrate all of his points.
Yes.
Which I think makes the article even more engaging.
Absolutely. He starts with something that I know we've all experienced.
Yeah.
That feeling when you get instructions that are like,
Oh, yeah.
not clear, or you're working on a project and
Mhm.
you're just not getting the feedback that you need.
Totally.
It's like you're set up to fail before you even begin.
Definitely.
But this deep dive is all about a framework that can help with exactly that.
Okay.
It's something that he calls the 3 loops model.
3 loops?
3 times the learning, 3 times the success.
Okay, so I'm already picturing like 3 rings of a circus.
Okay.
What exactly are we jumping through here?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Let's break it down.
Okay.
The article uses this example of a team leader and a training proposal
Gotcha.
to illustrate how this model actually works in practice.
Okay.
But before we jump into that,
Yeah.
I'm curious from your perspective, why do you think those initial instructions often fall apart? Like, why is it so hard to get everyone on the same page right from the start?
I think sometimes it's that classic assumption of shared understanding.
Okay.
The leader thinks they've been clear,
Right.
but they just haven't provided enough context, or they haven't considered the team member's experience level.
Right. It's like assuming that everyone speaks the same language.
Exactly.
When in reality, we all have our own little dialects, our own little jargon.
And then there's the flip side where you've got the team member that is hesitant to speak up,
Right.
to ask clarifying questions. Maybe they're afraid of looking incompetent, or they think they should just get it right away.
Yes.
Okay.
So then it becomes this silent cycle of misunderstanding,
Totally.
which can be so frustrating
It really can be.
for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where this 3 loops model comes in as a potential solution.
Okay.
So can you maybe use that training proposal example to walk us through each of those loops step by step?
Absolutely. So in loop 1, we see this team member who has been tasked with creating this training proposal.
Okay.
But instead of just jumping right in, he starts by gathering information.
Okay.
He's checking out social media. He's talking to experts. He's really trying to get a sense of what's out there already.
It's about being really proactive, right?
Yeah.
And exploring the whole landscape before you even put pen to paper.
Exactly. And then he moves into the consolidation phase where he takes all those ideas that he's gathered and puts them together in a first draft.
Okay. Now, this isn't meant to be the final product.
Right.
This is just a first attempt to organize his thoughts.
Kind of like a rough sketch before the masterpiece.
Exactly. And he shares this with the team leader
Mm-hmm.
who, initially gave him a pretty tight deadline and is now getting a little impatient.
Yeah.
And to be honest, he's also a little disappointed with the quality of this first draft.
Right. I can feel the tension building already.
Yes.
So what happens next?
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Instead of just taking over the project or giving it to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
the team leader decides to coach the team member.
Okay.
He gives him some feedback. He points out some areas for improvement,
Right.
but leaves the ownership of the project with the original team member.
Okay. So that's the first loop, gather information, consolidate it into some kind of a draft,
Right.
get that feedback.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end there, right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Now we enter loop 2.
Okay.
So the team member takes that feedback to heart.
And starts gathering more information.
Okay.
He does some more research based on what the team leader told him.
Mm-hmm.
He even calls the leader to clarify some points.
Wow.
And this all leads to a much stronger consolidation phase.
Cool.
And he produces a second draft.
Okay.
This time, he's even included a visual to help explain the training program.
So we're seeing how the team member is actively learning
Totally.
and improving with each of these iterations, right?
Yeah.
He's not just blindly following instructions. He's actually becoming a more capable and knowledgeable contributor.
Exactly. Now, the team leader's much happier with the second draft.
Okay, good.
But he feels like it could still use a little bit more polish before it's ready for prime time.
Oh.
So what does he do?
Hmm.
He brings in a third collaborator
Okay.
to provide an outside perspective.
Oh, so loop 3 introduces these fresh eyes, so like a whole new set of ideas.
Precisely.
Okay.
So this collaborator adds some design elements, tweaks the narrative a little bit, and they all have one final review together to make sure they're all on the same page.
Gotcha.
And then finally, they arrive at iteration 3,
Okay.
the final product.
So it really is about finishing a project 3 times,
Yeah,
but in a way that's like so much more collaborative.
it is.
And I think ultimately leads to a stronger outcome.
Yeah, and it's not just about the final result either. It's about the learning that happens along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring this back to our listener for a second.
Yeah.
Think about a time when you received instructions that were not clear,
Yeah.
or you just felt lost on a project.
Hmm.
How could this 3-loop approach have changed that whole experience for you?
Yeah.
Would it have maybe eased some of that frustration,
Hmm.
or maybe helped you feel a little bit more confident in the work that you were doing?
Absolutely.
So just keep that in mind as we continue to explore these 3 loops
Yeah.
and what makes them so powerful.
It's definitely worth reflecting on as we move into the next part of our deep dive.
Yes.
Yeah. As we delve deeper into these 3 loops, what's really fascinating to me is how this model isn't confined to just the workplace.
Yeah.
It's like a universal key that can unlock learning and growth in so many areas of life.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's like we're all trying to master new skills, whether it's at work or in our personal lives, or even in our hobbies. It makes you wonder, like, where else could you apply this? Gather, consolidate, iterate approach.
Yeah, let's say you're learning a new language.
Okay.
Think of loop 1 as building your foundation.
Okay.
You're gathering those basic vocabulary words and grammar rules, maybe even trying out a few simple phrases.
Right, it's like laying the bricks for your language house.
Exactly. Then in loop 2, you start putting those bricks together. You're practicing with a language partner or a tutor. You're getting feedback on your pronunciation, your grammar. You're consolidating what you've learned and refining your approach.
So like you're building the walls of your language house, making sure they're straight and sturdy.
I like that analogy. And then loop 3 is where you really start to make that house a home. You're immersing yourself in the language. You're watching movies, you're reading books, maybe you're even traveling to a country where it's spoken.
Wow.
You're gathering those new nuances, consolidating them into your understanding, and further refining your fluency.
Like you're decorating your language house, adding all the personal touches
Exactly.
that make it truly yours.
And throughout this whole process, you're constantly moving through those 3 loops, gathering, consolidating, iterating. It's this dynamic process that keeps you engaged and moving forward.
And it highlights something I think that's so crucial about this model.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual effort,
Mm.
right? It's about the feedback. It's about the collaboration. It's about bouncing ideas off of other people.
Absolutely. We often overlook that in our pursuit of self-improvement, don't we?
Yeah.
We try to go it alone, but we learn and grow so much faster when we're open to feedback and willing to collaborate.
Yeah.
Think about those brainstorming sessions where suddenly the energy shifts and everyone's ideas are feeding off of each other.
Yeah.
That's the power of collaboration.
It's like those moments in a jazz band when someone throws out a riff and everyone else jumps in and starts building on that initial idea. And all of a sudden you have this amazing improvised piece of music.
I love that analogy, and the 3 loops model provides that structure, that framework
Right.
for incorporating that feedback and that collaboration into the learning process.
Now, speaking of structure, I'd love to get your take on the specific actions taken in each loop by the team leader and the team member in the article's example.
Okay.
What stood out to you as being particularly effective?
Well, one thing that really struck me was the team member's proactive approach from the get-go.
Yeah.
He didn't just sit back and wait for instructions. He took initiative to gather information and explore different ideas.
Yeah.
That sense of ownership is so essential for effective learning.
He was driving the learning bus, not just riding along as a passenger.
Exactly. He was in the driver's seat, and that made all the difference. And then on the team leader side, I was really impressed by his willingness to provide coaching and feedback
Yeah.
instead of just like dictating the solution. He created a safe space for learning, which fostered a much more collaborative and productive environment.
It's like he was a gardener.
Yeah.
Nurturing that little seedling of an idea and helping it grow into a strong, healthy plant.
What a beautiful way to put it. He wasn't just focused on the end product. He was invested in the team members' growth and development.
And I think that's a hallmark of a truly effective leader.
Totally.
Someone who empowers their team members to learn and grow,
Yeah.
not just to follow orders.
Absolutely. Now, another action that really resonated with me was the inclusion of a third collaborator in that final loop.
Right.
Bringing in that fresh perspective was so crucial for ensuring the quality of the final product.
They're like adding a pinch of spice to a recipe.
Yes,
That extra something that elevates the dish to a whole new level.
exactly. It highlights the value of seeking diverse viewpoints and leveraging the strengths of different individuals.
Yeah.
We can achieve so much more when we work together.
They're shifting gears a bit. I want to touch on something that the article really emphasized, this idea that all projects are finished 3 times.
Yeah,
It might seem kind of counterintuitive in today's fast-paced work environment.
yeah, for sure.
But why do you think this emphasis on iteration is so important?
Well, I think it speaks to a deeper truth about how we approach work and learning.
Okay.
In a world that often prizes speed over quality,
Right.
it's easy to fall into the trap of rushing through projects and settling for good enough.
Oh,
But this model encourages us to slow down, step back, and really think about what we're trying to achieve.
it's like the difference between fast fashion and a handcrafted piece of clothing.
Oh, yeah.
One is quickly produced and disposable. The other is made with care, attention to detail, and built to last.
Exactly. And I think that's where the true value lies. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about creating something meaningful and impactful.
And by taking the time to iterate and refine, we not only improve the quality of our work, but we also deepen our understanding and develop our skills along the way.
For sure.
It's like those artisans who spend years honing their craft, constantly refining their technique and striving for excellence.
Beautifully put. It's about striving for excellence, not just completion. And I think that's a really important message for our listeners, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about doing more, faster, better.
Right. It's about finding that balance between speed and quality, efficiency and craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
And this 3 loops model, I think, gives us a framework for doing just that.
You know, this idea of finishing things 3 times, it's not just limited to projects at work either.
Right.
Think about personal growth setting goals, building new habits. It's rarely a linear process, is it? There are setbacks, adjustments, refinements along the way.
It's like learning to ride a bike. You might start off wobbly, maybe even fall a few times, but with each attempt, you're adjusting your balance, refining your technique, and getting closer to that feeling of freedom and mastery.
Exactly. And that's where the 3 loops model can be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
It reminds us that it's okay to make mistakes, to course correct, and to keep iterating until we achieve that desired outcome.
It's about embracing the journey and understanding that growth is a continuous process,
Yes.
not a destination.
And I think that's a really empowering message for our listeners.
Absolutely.
It's about letting go of that pressure to be perfect and instead focusing on progress and continuous improvement.
Yeah.
We all have the capacity to learn, grow, and achieve great things no matter what challenges we face.
As we're wrapping up our deep dive into 3 loops for leading learners, I keep coming back to that Chinese proverb at the beginning of the article.
Oh, yeah. Tell me and I forget. Show me and I will remember. Involve me and I will understand.
Such a simple statement, but I
Yeah.
think it really captures the essence of this whole model.
Yeah, I think so too.
It pushes us beyond just passive learning and really emphasizes that active involvement,
Right.
the feedback, the collaboration.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where learning is an ongoing process.
Yes.
Not just a one-time event.
And that applies to so many different aspects of our lives, not just the workplace.
Totally.
Right? We talked about using this framework for personal growth, for creative projects, even for teaching others. It's like this versatile tool
Yeah.
for continuous improvement,
Yeah.
always there in your back pocket.
And amidst all this, one of the most valuable aspects of the 3 loops model is really its simplicity.
Right.
It's not some complicated system with a million steps.
Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward framework that anyone can implement.
Right. It's accessible and actionable.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just a theory. It's something we can actually use today
Totally.
to learn better
Yeah.
and to achieve more.
And I think that's a really encouraging takeaway for our listeners. It reminds us that we all have that capacity to learn and grow and achieve great things no matter what challenges we face.
I love that it's about taking ownership of our own learning journey and recognizing that growth is a process,
Yes.
not an endpoint.
Now, as we conclude our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
As you go about your day, Think about those areas of your life where you're seeking to learn or grow or achieve something new.
Yeah.
And just ask yourself, how can I apply this three loops model to enhance my journey?
That's a great challenge. Whether it's a work project or a personal goal or just expanding your knowledge,
Yeah.
this model gives us a really good roadmap for success.
Yeah, it's about becoming a more intentional and effective learner.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
That's good.
We've covered so much today, but I hope our listeners have gained some valuable insights and some really practical tools to enhance their own learning journeys.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you and our listeners.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep growing.
And remember, involve yourself and you will understand it.